that automatically sent phone calls to people reminding them to go out and vote. So this is the Google executive chairman, Eric Schmidt, working for the president. And coincidentally, right soon after in 2012, the FTC dropped its inquiry against Google. Google was accused of burying its competitors in search results. Well, lo and behold, that got thrown out. And of course, the FCC's net neutrality plan was just revealed. Nobody knew what was in it, but according to this report, we have 15 pages of this agreement being amended or dropped altogether. I guess Google got word of it. They weren't happy with it. So amended the entire plan to suit this corporation's needs. And of course, you know, they scratch each other's back because Google helped fix the Obamacare website, all those glitches there. But all of that can be easily forgiven compared to what Google is planning next: politically filtered information. Now, Google says that in the future, its determinations about what's true and what is untrue will play a role in how search engine rankings are configured. Google, of course, has the power to bump an article or website it doesn't like, and it's purporting to be the purveyor of truth without mastering a completely unbiased and objective system. So we're talking about a company whose CEO danced the night away with Obama on election night, whose employees donated more to the Obama campaign. Obviously, we're not talking about a neutral corporation, and it's going to go on. This chummy relationship isn't going to end when Obama leaves office. It's going to go on regardless of who is the president. And that's alarming because we know that aside from these filters, Google also dominates the online ad market. And this is a huge source of their gatekeeping power. And if a website running its ads contains content that Google or its friends in the government find objectionable, well, then Google can just pull those ads until that content is removed. Now, most independent sites, of course, depend on the income that they generate from these ads. We Are Change just tweeted out this weekend that the same thing had happened to them. They'd gotten their AdSense pulled because the content was objectionable. And INFOWARS.com, which is a long-running daily news commentary, very critical of U.S. foreign policy, they just saw their site targeted this month as well. This happened on the morning of March 18th. Eric Garris, who's the founder and webmaster of the site, says that he received a form email from Google AdSense informing him that all of INFOWARS.com's Google ads had been disabled. And the reason was given that one of the site's pages with ads on it displayed images that violated the policy. They were violent or disturbing. This included gory text and images. But the images in question weren't snuff. They weren't there to titillate the senses, anything like that. They were famous pictures of the prisoners who were detained at Abu Ghraib, the U.S. military prison in Iraq. These were those famous pictures that showed detainee abuse that actually got a lot of the American public against the war. And so that's the issue that we're seeing here again, because Garris is saying, of course, the timing of this out of the blue enforcement was highly suspect, given the fact that we are ramping up for another war with Iraq and the Middle East as well. We're going to surely see another wave of violence and abuse. And that's what he's pointing out, is that this page had been up for 11 years. And all of a sudden now they're taking these extreme measures to block this content. Now, his argument here is that photography is the bane of all war makers. Images like the Pulitzer Prize-winning photograph of a naked Vietnamese child fleeing a napalm attack played a major role in turning American public opinion against the Vietnam War and against war in general. That's why you're never going to see images of the dead bodies on the mainstream news. You're only going to see the images of the flag-draped casket. It's honorable. It's the honorable side of war. And here he asks, are ads to only appear next to pictures of the comfortable and well-groomed elites who start wars, and never the bloodied and bedraggled plebes who suffer them? So this is the same website, Google, or search engine, whatever you want to call it. They gave John Kerry a platform on their front page to gear the American public up for war with Syria. He was there going on the debunked claims of a chemical weapons attack. They allowed all of those images to be put up of the chemical weapons attack right there on Google. They say, hey, come join us today via Hangout. Secretary Kerry is going to answer questions live on Syria. So when it suits the Obama administration's narrative, they're going to help it out. They're not going to censor it. They're going to pop up those ads. They're going to even push it and say, come and join us here. That's the issue with Google being the purveyor of truth and having the power to silence certain websites and certain articles that aren't following the White House talking points. They can remove ads. They can take down entire YouTube channels and decide what will see the light of day. And this is the big issue with allowing Google to control the narrative. Well, a student in Florida was suspended last week for the crime of documenting a teacher bullying one of her students. This is 11-year-old Brianna, and she says that her science teacher was being mean to another student. So she says she took out her cell phone and began to record this incident. She thought that this recording would help to prove her story, saying, do you think that they would actually believe a student over a teacher? But instead of thanking her for bringing it to their attention, they called it illegal and suspended her for 5 days. Now, it's pretty much saying, of course, to these students, if you think something is wrong, don't try and do anything about it.
I thought I did the right thing.
Brianna says one of her science teachers was being mean to a student, so she took out her cell phone and started recording what she says were threats by her teacher to a classmate.
Don't let the size fool you. I will drop you. Yeah, right. You don't know me. That's all I'm telling you. So don't give me no look.
Brianna says the teacher had been mean to students before. This time she wanted to prove it.
You think that they would actually believe a student over a teacher?
So I guess see something, say something only applies when you're tattling on your parents or your neighbors and not on your bullying teachers. Now, there in Florida, under the law, recording someone without their knowledge is legal when there is no expectation of privacy, which you would think is the case in a public school. But what about privacy in your own home? Now we have several schools in England who are threatening to call Child Protective Services and have parents arrested if they find out that their children are allowed to play video games like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. And they're even threatening these parents with arrest if they allow their children to go on Facebook and WhatsApp.
Jakari Jackson here for INFOWARS.com. You know, back in the 1950s, a bunch of comic book publishers got together and created the Comics Code Authority. They did this because comics were the ill of media at the time, and Congress was threatening to come down on them and censor their works. Fast forward to when I was a child, you had Eminem and Marilyn Manson being blamed for the shooting at Columbine.
When a dude's getting bullied and shoots up your school and they blame it on Marilyn.
The point I'm trying to make here is that every generation has its own scapegoat media, which is blamed for social problems. And this generation is no different. They talk about games like Black Ops. They talk about games like Grand Theft Auto. And while I will agree with you, those games are not appropriate for children, I don't think parents should be arrested or have the police call on them for allowing their children to play such games. On the site, we have a memo from the Netwitch Education Partnership. And it says, if your child is allowed to have inappropriate access to any game or associated product that is 18 plus, this is the educational partnership, we will advise to contact the police and children's social care as it is neglectful. Now, are there things in M-rated games that are inappropriate for young children? Of course there are. The same thing with R-rated movies and explicit content music. But I'm not calling for the censorship of any of these things, and I definitely don't want parents to be put in a slammer because their children experience these things. And since we want to talk about the school system, I'm much more concerned about what the school system is doing when you have children being kicked out of school for eating their Pop-Tarts the wrong way, or children being suspended for playing with toy guns in their front yard. And let us not forget, school systems spying on children through laptops. And while I can't pin any of those things on this particular educational system, the school systems do have a whole lot to answer for. You can find more reports on INFOWARS.com.
Used since before the days of the Roman Empire, to support the body's natural systems and enhance overall health. Introducing the new INFOWARSLife.com oil of oregano formulation, a highly advanced nutraceutical form of this key herb that has been traditionally used by civilizations for thousands of years to promote health. We have now procured the most high quality and potent forms of oregano oil on the market, sourced from top leading manufacturers to ensure a concentrated level of bioactive ingredients, extracted directly from the wild herb and sealed in easy-to-use capsules. You will no longer need to endure the burning of liquid oregano on the tongue. Wild crafted from the Mediterranean oregano species that experts agree is one of the most powerful and most challenging to acquire. This winter season, it's more important than ever to secure this true form of oil of oregano. Now available in our limited first run at INFOWARSLife.com. That's INFOWARSLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system or call 1-888-253-3139.
The Jade Helm military exercise, set to take place in 9 US states this summer, has prompted concerns about preparations for martial law in America. But could the real purpose behind the drill be centered around a mock invasion of Iran and Syria and a huge Middle Eastern war? As we've exhaustively documented, these drills are clearly dual purpose, and there are plans in place to use the army in a law enforcement capacity to intern Americans during mass domestic unrest. But as Sputnik News documents today, Jade Helm seems to be geared around a much more sinister project, namely, quote, a preparation for an invasion of Iran and a Middle East-wide war. Look at this map. You'll recognize it as being from the Jade Helm exercise documents, but it's been amended slightly. The image is rotated to represent the approximate position of countries within the Middle East. So instead of Texas, Utah, and a pocket of California being represented as hostile states, the rogue nations become Iran, Syria, and Palestine, with Iraq, currently under siege by ISIS, leaning hostile. Israel, Lebanon, and Turkey in blue are friendly states. The US states are also comparable in some ways to the Middle Eastern countries they represent. New Mexico has vast swathes of desert like Iraq. Utah has both mountains and flatlands like Syria. California generally has a more gentle Mediterranean climate like Israel. Then look at the different operations that will be undertaken during Jade Helm, and the implications are alarming. In Utah, the equivalent of Syria, there will be a huge mock battle located here, with the enemy being the army of a simulated country. Apply this to the Middle East, and we're talking about the Syrian army, allies of course with Iran. Also during Jade Helm, 2 unidentified operational detachment groups will also be dispatched to the capital here, simulating a covert operation in Damascus, Syria. Being a permissive blue state, Colorado, or Turkey, would allow NATO and US forces to move through the area unimpeded. California, or Israel, is also listed as a permissive blue state. No deployments of troops are planned to California during Jade Helm, just as no US troops would need to enter Israel during an invasion of Iran and Syria. The insurgent pocket shown on the Jade Helm map probably represents the West Bank and the coastal Gaza Strip, although it could also represent Hezbollah forces in Lebanon who would oppose a US invasion of Iran. Arizona